Hello friends, it's your old pal Heavy of Metal again. Everybody and their girlfriend's boyfriend know that engineering can give you a huge leg up in PvP. But some people just don't want to be engineers. I mean, I do. I don't know who wouldn't. But let's say these people are out there. What about them? Well, for the engineering adverse, I've put together a list of non-profession bound gear that can give you a pretty big advantage in a PvP fight, or at least help you even the playing field against filthy, filthy wizards. I'll be giving a quick rundown on each of the items, going over their use, source, cooldown, and application. First up, everybody knows it, everybody loves it, it's a staple of tryhards everywhere, the Tidal Charm. This is a trinket item that has an on-use 3-second range stun effect. It is obtained from Prince Nazjac, a rare spawn Naga located off the southwest coast of Arathi Highlands. Nazjac has a long respawn timer of somewhere between 30 to 40 hours. It's highly contested, and even if you do kill him, the Tidal Charm only has around a 50% drop rate. The cooldown for the Tidal Charm is 15 minutes, fairly long. Still useful in a BG or large-scale PvP, but it will really shine when used to cinch a duel or an open world 1v1. The applications for this should be pretty obvious. An additional 3-second stun in PvP can be the difference between life and death. It's particularly good for classes that don't have a native stun. Next is Linken's Boomerang. If you didn't get it, it's a Zelda reference. Woo-wee. This is another trinket with an on-use effect that throws a boomerang at your target, dealing a little damage with a chance to disarm or stun them. It's a reward from the final quest from a long-ass quest chain that'll have you ping-ponging all over the world. It begins at a wrecked raft located in the southeast of Ungoro Crater near a lake. The quest is called It's a Secret to Everybody. The thing only has a 3-minute cooldown, which is pretty good. The downside is no one's really sure what the proc rate for the stun and disarm are. I've heard it being as high as 50% on some private servers and much lower on others. So we'll just have to wait and see in actual Classic. The application should be obvious. It's a chance at a ranged stun or disarm. This thing is pretty sassy against hunters and warriors as long as they aren't immune to disarm. I've seen a number of mages use it prior to a big cast, and I've also heard that it's pretty decent for paladin tanks. You know, so they can like range pull, but it's paladin tanks. Who cares? Skull of Impending Doom is an offhand item popularized by Swifty many years ago. It has an on-use effect that increases your run speed by 60% for 10 seconds and deals periodic damage to yourself. It's a reward from the quest chain that starts at the NPC Theldurin the Lost, located in South Central Badlands. This is another one of those quests that will end up taking you all over the world, so buckle up. This item only has a 5-minute cooldown, so not too bad at all, but remember swapping to this will incur a 30-second wait timer and requires a little premeditation to use effectively. It's most notably used when running flags in Warsong Gulch for the speed increase, but because of the periodic damage, it can also be used as a method of breaking CC, such as Mage's Sheep or Rogue Sap and so on. The Horned Viking helmet is one of my favorite pieces of gear. It's essentially a plate version of the Goblin Rocket helmet with 10 extra agility. Since it's plate, only warriors can use it. It's a drop from Eric the Swift, located in the Dig 2 section of the Alderman dungeon. Eric is a friendly quest giver to the Alliance, which means they can't obtain this item, making it Horde only. The cooldown for this item is 30 minutes, which is 10 minutes longer than the cooldown of the Goblin Rocket helmet. But, with an item this strong, I wouldn't want people spamming it every 5 minutes. Still, I don't believe that it shares a cooldown with the Goblin Rocket helmet, so if you're an engineer, use one and switch out for the other. As a warrior, this thing gives you an additional gap closer, which can be a real lifesaver versus classes that are prone to kite you. If you time it right, you can use this thing when Deep Wounds is off and practically reset a fight for you. 30 seconds is a pretty crazy long time to be incapacitated. The Furbolg Mess and Pouch is a favorite among casters. Held in the offhand, this thing's on use will restore a total of 1000 HP over 10 seconds, and can be coupled with a bandage for a ton of healing. Obtaining this item requires you to become honored with the Timber Maw hold. There's tons of guides out there on the best way to do that, and I won't waste your time going over it here. Once you're honored, the pouch can be purchased from Gorn One Eye, located in Timber Maw hold between Fellwood and Winterspring for 15 gold. It has a 20-minute cooldown, which isn't terrible. The PvP application is that it's a boatload of healing. I mean, sheep a guy, use this bad boy in a bandage, and bam, buku health. The Nifty Stopwatch is a pretty straightforward item. It's a trinket that increases your run speed by 40% for 10 seconds. It's obtained from a quest in the Badlands called This Is Going to Be Hard, but requires a previous quest chain that starts with Coolant Heads Prevail. The two NPCs doling out these quests are Lot Will Veritas and Lucien Tossel Wrench. Ridiculous. I just hate gnomes. The stopwatch has a substantial 30-minute cooldown. It's useful for flag carrying, kiting other players, or chasing down other players trying to kite you. The Arena Grandmaster trinket puts an Absorb Shield on you for 750 to 1251 damage. It's a highly sought after item that requires you to collect 12 regular Arena Master trinkets and turn them into an NPC named Short John Mithril, located in the stands of the Gurubashi Arena. The regular trinkets come from the chest that spawns in the middle of the arena every 3 hours on the following schedule. If you're unaware, the Gurubashi Arena is a free-for-all PvP area, which means anyone from either faction can kill you once you enter its ring. You'll have to fight these other players off in order to loot the chest. Again, this thing has a substantial cooldown of 30 minutes, but is extremely valuable for small-scale PvP. I find it particularly effective against other warriors since they don't generate rage off of shields. If you pop this when they are low on rage, they'll have to auto-attack through it. The Spider Belt is a cloth waist piece that removes all immobilizing effects and makes you immune to them for 5 seconds. This belt is made by tailors and requires the following materials: 4 bolts of silk cloth, 2 thick spider silk, and 1 iron buckle. The hardest part about obtaining this belt is finding a tailor with the recipe, since the pattern is a world drop. The belt's cooldown is disappointingly long at 30 minutes, and you have to remember that this removes immobilizing effects, not slows. Still, this piece of gear is an amazing tool for melee dealing with mages. The Ornate Mithril boots are a pair of plate boots that do the same exact job as the spider belt, removing immobilizing effects and making you immune to them for 5 seconds. They're created by blacksmiths for the following materials: 14 mithril bars, 2 true silver bars, 4 thick leather, 1 grinding stone, and 1 aquamarine. This recipe is tied to a blacksmithing quest and not a world drop, so finding someone to make it should be easier than the spider belt. And just like the belt, these shit kickers have a long 30-minute cooldown. The Barov Peasant Collar is a trinket item that summons 3 NPCs to fight for you. It is a quest reward from the Barov family fortune chain, which can be picked up from either Alexei Barov for the Horde or Weldon Barov for the Alliance. The first part of the quest will require you to pick up 4 deeds located in the Skullomance dungeon. The second part will have you kill the opposing faction's quest giver, either Weldon or Alexei. The Peasant Collar has a decent cooldown on it of only 10 minutes. The peasants don't have a lot of health or do a ton of damage, but they are useful as a distraction, and they can delay an enemy's cast time since the 3 peasants attack pretty fast. The Luffa is a trinket item that will remove 1 bleed effect from you. is a reward from the quest Incendisars, whatever Asars is more like it, given by Hansel Heavy Hands at Thorium Point in the Searing Gorge. The Luffa only has a short 3-minute cooldown. The item's semi-useful for all classes, but especially so for rogues, so they can wipe off bleeds before re-entering stealth. The Swift Boots are a pair of leather boots that increase your run speed by 40% for 15 seconds. They're made by leather workers for the following materials: 10 heavy leather, 2 swiftness potions, 2 thick spider silk, and 1 silken thread. The pattern's learned from a world drop, so much like the spider belt, the hardest part about obtaining these is finding someone that knows how to make it. The cooldown on these bastards is a staggering 1 hour. Straight outrageous. But they're not a bad item to keep in your toolkit for when other speed boosting items are on cooldown. Well friends, thanks for tuning in for this one, but that's all I got. If you have any suggestions, leave them in the comments for me. If you liked what you saw, think about subscribing. And if you didn't like it, chances are you're a tanking paladin, and I don't really care what you think.